My name is Max Gagliardi, and this is the Talk Energy Podcast. If you're watching this video, take a moment, hit the subscribe button on YouTube, or you can follow me on your favorite podcast app, leave a review. That would help me out. And thanks to all the new subscribers. This last month's been incredible. I've gained almost 200 subscribers on YouTube in the last month, which is a lot for me, and it's very hard to get subscriptions on YouTube. Most of the people listening or watching don't subscribe. If you get a chance, please hit subscribe. It means a lot. This episode is sponsored by Blockware Solutions. If you're interested in mining Bitcoin or wonder what's going on in the Bitcoin markets, Blockware is a great resource. They sell new and used ASICs. They've hosted over 200 megawatts for their clients. They've sold over 250,000 ASICs and mined over 1,000 Bitcoin in the Blockware pool. They've got a bunch of great research, a great podcast. You can check it out if you want to learn more at blockwaresolutions.com/energy. That's blockwaresolutions.com/energy, and it would help the channel. This episode's guest is Grant Raney. Grant's the CEO of Environmental Impact Solutions, as well as the VP of Land for Impact Energy. Grant's a fellow OKC entrepreneur, and it was great to sit down with him in person and talk to him about all the various startups he has going on in the energy industry. This episode, we talk about the challenges of starting an upstream production company. We talk about how Impact Energy evaluates their acquisitions and what they look for in a good deal. The conversation then moves to what it's like working together. Grant works with his dad as his partner at Impact. I think it's really cool. I have a great relationship with my dad, and he was a mentor for me in the industry. I think Grant feels the same way, and it was just fun to talk to him about it and hear about the way that they started the company. And lastly, we talk about Environmental Impact Solutions, the company that Grant recently founded, and what they're doing to help oil and gas producers clean up their operations in the oil patch. Hope you enjoy the show. Grant, thanks for coming over.
Max, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, welcome to Talk Energy. Really, just to start, we don't know each other that well. Just start out, give some background.
Yeah, so work at Impact Energy Partners, which is a company that my dad and I co-founded in 2015. Before that, I was at Chesapeake. I think you were probably there about the same time.
What years were you at Chesapeake?
I was there from, let's see, I got out of school in fall of 2010, started in 2011, and then was there till the fall of 2015.
Nice.
Yep.
So I would have been there right at that time. What were you in? What group were you in?
Started in the Rockies with the Rockies team, and then when Chesapeake started putting the Utica in-house team together, I switched over there with Jeff Pinter.
Yeah.
If you remember
Yeah.
Jeff? Yeah.
He came over to marketing afterwards.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. He came over marketing maybe in a couple of years after we started the Utica.
Was it in the land side?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, land side.
That's right. What college did you go
to? University of Oklahoma.
Okay.
Energy management.
Right. Yeah. What year was that? What about?
Let's see. I was there. I graduated high school in 2007 and then graduated from OU in 2010.
Okay, so
2010.
Close to the same age.
Yeah.
I'm at 05 for high school.
Yeah.
What about your dad's background? You said you started Impact in 2015. What was he doing?
Yeah, so Mickey was with a company called JEC Operating. He and Rusty Johnson had been kind of partners for 20 plus years. Rusty was my baseball coach growing up. And,
nice.
And he and Rusty had just kind of the typical deal. Mickey's a petroleum engineer, and Rusty's kind of the land BD guy, and put deals together and had a group of investors, and so he was doing that. Prior to that, he had worked for a few other companies, but he petroleum engineer, graduated from college, put at OSU actually, and put himself through college roughnecking, and started working for the Hunt family, and then the Bogart family in Oklahoma City, and then that's when he went out on his own, probably in his late 20s.
That's cool. I bet you, so growing up around it, you basically you had a dad that was living and breathing it. You grew up around it your whole life.
Oh yeah. I mean, also I was homeschooled growing up. And so occasionally our field trips would be going out with dad to the little patch.
Yeah.
And, I remember one time, I went out with him. It was probably the summer, and, he was, that was when he was still doing some of the work out in the field, and he was trying to get a well going or something. I don't know exactly, but I remember we were staying at this hotel, shower didn't even work. It was just a nasty hotel. And we would get up every 3 hours. He was probably trying to get the plunger to run or something. And I just remember how horrible that was. And I don't remember exactly, but my dad tells the story. He said, so that's when you decided, you said, Dad, I think I want to be in the industry, but I want to work in the office. And I appreciate those guys that get out in the field and do that. But I've grown up in it, and used to go out with dad out in the field, and Christmases were always good, but especially good when gas prices or oil prices were up. And having lived in it growing up, I knew to save when I was working at Chesapeake, and that's ultimately what happened. Is I was part of one of 700 people that got let go, and I guess that was October. And so then I had, done a good job of saving, and then of course they gave me a great severance, and that was kind of the seed capital to start Impact Energy Partners.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, I distinctly remember growing up, and my dad was a geologist. He did the independent thing for a while, but he also worked for companies, and he actually had 2 really long stretches where he worked at companies for a long time. But the one he worked at in Tulsa, a lot of ups and downs. It was a family-owned company, and I just remember, as a kid, like, my parents would like insulate me from it, right? But they would like say things like, hey, this year's gonna be tough, like, and I didn't know, like, I think a lot of, I guess, I don't know if it was the compensation or what was tied to like either how the company was doing, or I think he got like overrides or things like that, or I don't know the details, but I just remember those ups and downs. And then I remember his company got, I don't know if they went under, got bought, but something happened where the company went away, and it was just like that, those moments like stuck out. And my dad always being like, don't get in, he's like, if you have the chance, like, you should go try to do something else that's not so up and down. And it's just hard though, being in Oklahoma. It's just like there's so much opportunity, and it's all around, so it's hard to get away from it.
It's mesmerizing. I mean, it's still one of the few industries where you can essentially be broke one day and a millionaire the next. I mean, you have that in tech or certain things, but just the energy that our city throws off, and the quality of life that we get from energy. I mean, it's pretty cool to be a part of really a small industry that essentially powers the entire U.S. And you're right. I mean, I've even told people that I know, one of them works for us, and he was in between jobs before he started working for us. And I was like, why are you in this industry? There's so many other things you could do. And but he's just like, I just love it. It's so awesome. Well, now he works for us, so we're happy to have him. But it is a rough industry. It's up and down all the time. And even today, it's like, oil's at what, 112 or whatever it is. Yeah. Gas prices are 8, and it's really awesome. But it's like, well, when's the next bus coming? You know, and so it just, you got to be on your toes. You got to watch your debt. You got to save. When it's good, and so when it's bad again, you can get through it. And I think those are some of the key principles I learned growing up, and having lived through the booms and bust already. Mostly bust. It's been bad since I got in until now, but yeah, it's a one of a kind industry. People are great, and money just, there's a lot of money involved in it, and it's really exciting.
It's one of those industries where the input variable, like your price that you're getting, is just, it fluctuates so much. And talk about an industry that's just so capital intensive, and then also you can do everything right. You can drill a perfect lateral or drill a perfect well. You can do all the right things. The production can come on the way that it needs to come on. And then you can't control like the main variable. Like, I mean, yes, you can hedge and you can do some things, but then like you can do everything right basically, and your company can still be having a hard time just because of prices. And so it's almost just like this different mindset, like you mentioned, like understanding like where you're at on the roller coaster. Like, are you at the top where it's going up at $8 gas, or are you at the bottom of it? And like just knowing where you're at and planning accordingly, it's just it's a hard industry, right? I mean,
yeah, it's very difficult. I think you said you can hedge, but if when you're getting started like we were, it's like you don't have enough volumes to hedge, and it costs money, and even hedging, you see guys, on paper can lose a lot of money. So it's like, well, do you really win if you hedge? I mean, you're exposed to just a commodity that you have no control of. Like my brother has a pretty big lawn and landscape company in Oklahoma City, and I was trying to explain it to him one day. It'd be like you have your clients, and every week the price of you mowing a lawn is just going to change. Like $30 this week, $10 the next, and he's like, yeah, I hadn't thought about it. He's like, yeah, that's a crazy.
He might be seeing a little bit with. I don't know how much gas prices affect his business, but I'm sure that there's some level of the fuel cost increases.
I was asking him about that. Most of their stuff's pretty close, or they can do a big landscape job where they can stay on location, for a couple of days. So not as much, but certainly it's going to.
Not like for the equipment, like I guess the cost isn't so much.
Not so much.
Yeah, I just was wondering. I was wondering if my lawn guy was going to hit me up and ask for.
He'll probably tell you that. He'll be like, "Yeah, prices, going up."
Yeah, I need an extra $10 or whatever.
I need an extra $10.
No, so tell me about Impact and what you guys are doing, and we'll talk about the business a little bit.
Yeah, certainly. So like I said, we got started in 2015. We're not private equity backed. We're a private company that, shoot, I have a second mortgage on my home, Max, just to help fund some deals on occasion. But, we funded it through kind of a friends and family vehicle, some strategic non-op partners, buddies that have oil and gas companies that say, yeah, we'll take a piece of it. That's how we've structured our deals. And, we started out, the first couple of years, like a lot of people, it was hard to buy things, didn't have a whole lot of capital, and were able to flip some leases in Custer County with a group. We partnered with a group called Stronghold Resource Partners. Yeah. I think we were one of their second funded groups, and we were successful. So that was great, and able to roll that into kind of our first acquisition on the operated side in 2018, and then a second acquisition in 2019 with some non-op deals in between. And so, my whole kind of vision for the company is, well, one, the name Impact. We believe having an impact in people's lives through energy. And so the more people that we can hire and make an impact in is important to me and my dad. Partner and so like the last couple, I would say that over the last year we've been able to hire some tremendous talent. Nice. And of course, with prices being up and we virtually have no debt, the cash is nice right now. We're making a lot of money, so we're trying to position the company to buy more assets. And we're working on a few things right now. We've been reaching out to some additional non-op partners and some strategic partners, and hopefully we'll have an announcement here in the next couple months of some stuff we're working on, which could be really good for the company. But that's kind of how we do it. It's kind of an old school approach. Like, we take what we can and we kind of sell down the rest, and have good partners that that are not operators and trust us to operate, and that's how we've kind of done things.
Is it mostly Oklahoma? Where's the geographic?
Yeah, so all of our stuff so far is predominantly Oklahoma. We have non-op interest in probably about 300 properties across, 12 to 17 counties. And then we operate about 230 wells in northern Oklahoma, and then a few scattered out in western Oklahoma.
Was it all horizontal? Was it vertical? Or
it's a combination of vertical and horizontal. We're not really, because we're not funded by anybody per se out of New York or Houston. We don't really have a board. It's me and Mickey, my dad. We go where the money is, or try to, right? Yeah. And so we're pretty opportunistic, and so all of our stuff has been in Oklahoma, but we're looking at things in Wyoming and Texas, and if we see there's some value there, we'll try to take it down.
Back to bringing it back a little bit to where you're younger. Maybe you did realize it because your dad was in it, but I just never knew till I got at Chesapeake and I worked Oklahoma at Chesapeake. I just never realized the amount of world-class resource just in our home state, and how cool that was. I remember it just hit me one day. I was looking at a map and I was learning all the county names, and that was another thing is live here your whole life, and I couldn't have named 10 counties probably, when I was growing up, and you go and you get in the business and you're looking at, and I was really fortunate to work Oklahoma. Oklahoma's just I'll always love it. No matter what, we work other basins. We've got clients all over the place in different basins, and I've worked it in my professional career, some other basins before we started Ancova, but I just think Oklahoma is I guess I'm partial. It's my favorite place to work. There's just so much different opportunity here. And I guess it never hit me till I got older that we had all this under our feet in our state.
Yeah, we're looking at some stuff in Wyoming, and we've looked at stuff in Colorado, and those are fine. But yeah, Oklahoma it really is. I'm reading a book on Frank Phillips. I think it's called The Oil Man, and it's pretty amazing how the oil industry really got booming here early on, and has been more or less booming ever since. And a lot of the nice things we have in the city are because of our industry. Yeah. And you have a diverse class of assets. You have oil assets, gas assets, and
different depths, different parts of the state, different types of quality. And it's funny because when the big private equity wave happened in Oklahoma, I remember all this money came in, and I've got some friends that have families that are in oil, that have their own little operating companies, and they didn't like that at all. They were like, this is ridiculous, all these private equities coming in. But then I remember when the private equity started to turn over, and in 19, when the rig count started dropping, And I think that you talk to a lot of the private equity money people, and they're like, oh, Oklahoma's out of favor. Like, the public market doesn't like it. The private equity guys don't like it. And they kind of painted this narrative like it was dead. And it's like, well, that's funny, because I've got, friends whose dads have been their company's 40 years in Oklahoma, and they're really well off. They've done a great job. They have tons of production. And I was like, maybe they just weren't doing it right. Maybe they were coming in with a different model that didn't fit the model that was here. And now that it's kind of been more subdued, the rig count's back up. It's like a third of where it was. I think we're looking at today, it's like 50 some odd rigs. I think it peaked out at like 145 or something. I don't know. But it's interesting.
Yeah, I think, private equity in a lot of senses was good for our industry, and people made a lot of money. But I think what our industry got caught up in was just over capitalizing sections. You would see mineral deals being shopped around for tiny interest, and they wanted so much money for it, because they're like, well, they're going to put 20 wells in this section, and you're like, I don't think that's really going to work. But I think if you can get back to 3-4 wells per section, or something, there's still a lot of opportunity here. And of course, you're seeing that with groups like Citizen Energy, Ventive, and some of the Continental. Still, Continental is one of the the largest or best independents around, and they've still had a pretty big commitment here. So
sure,
there's a lot of opportunity, but you got to have a good team too.
And the other thing, you're exactly right. And the other thing is, it's like, and this is my dad as a geologist kind of preaching to me, and he's like, it's really more of a gas basin. I mean, there's just so much gas, and I think that it was painted as like, obviously there's a ton of oil here too, but it was painted as like a Permian type oil play, maybe in the private equity world, like the next Permian, or a kind of a Permian light. And the reality is, there are good places to drill for oil, but there's a ton of natural gas and a ton of rich gas here. And I think that just that slump in gas prices and NGL prices that came down with oil coming down, it really killed a lot of guys. And as they ramped up, it was like the basis differential blew out, and we needed new pipes getting built. They finally got built. As soon as they did, activity dropped. But I just think understanding Oklahoma and what it is, and going in at the right entry point, paying the right, it's like people are like, oh, Oklahoma, it's out of favor. And I'm like, well, what did you pay to get in?
Right, yeah.
If you paid like whatever per acre at the height of when that was all going on, then yeah, it probably is not doing as well versus if you got in at a different entry point, a different price tag.
No, I agree. Max, it wasn't too long ago we were getting like 70 cents for our gas.
Yeah.
Now we're getting, $5, $6, $7, $8.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're right. I think people just got so caught up in the frenzy of things. They were just overpaying, and they weren't pay attention to, the actual data, and kind of things got overhyped, which happens in our industry. It happens all the time.
Right. You
can go back to the 80s, and then before that. That's what our industry does, unfortunately.
It does. It's the boom and bust. And for good, and for certain reasons, right? Like you mentioned the 70 cents thing, like our business is like a lot of it, the consulting side is like just kind of fixed, fees, but then we have some gas that we market, and there is some price exposure. And I'm telling you, like, it's I remember we had what year was this? This was probably 2018, maybe. It was right before things kind of slowed down in 19. And I think like if I'm remembering the time period right, and I'll probably look at this afterwards and I got it wrong, but I think it was like October, November, December of 18, and gas prices got up to like $4.50 or, in the fours, and they hadn't been there in a while. And I remember being like, oh my gosh, like this is awesome for revenue, and then like, and just being like, you kind of start to count your chickens before they hatch. You're like, oh man, if prices could just stay this, so it's kind of like right now. It's like, if prices could stay at this level, this would be so great. And then I remember like there was actually when we were doing a midstream deal, because we built a gathering system for one of our clients, and they drilled a relatively dry gas well. It was pretty dry. It had a little bit of liquids, but, and it came on at a good rate. And I think when they brought it on in January, prices had already crashed back below $2. It was like $1.90 whenever they started selling gas, and they drilled it when it was like $4 or something bucks, and then they started selling gas at $1.90. And then that year in 2019 is the year you're talking about, and it was like it didn't average this for the month, but there was days within the month where gas prices were like 40 cents, 50 cents per MMBTU. And you're just like, this is awful. And you look at like the revenue impact, and you're just like, you go from being like, oh, $4, to being like, okay, like let's switch. If I want to pay payroll, that's all I want. I'm like, get back to $2, get back to $1.50. Just don't stay at 40 cents. Yeah, it's a roller coaster.
And the natural gas liquids had dropped as well. I mean, one of the first assets we bought was in 2018, very, natural gas liquid heavy. I think we ran economics at, 60, 70 cents. And, kind of towards that end of 18, first of 19, I think they went to like, 12 or 7. Right. And because it was all that, all the Texas production was coming online, they were just so backlogged. Yeah. Of course, now I think natural gas liquids are what, $1.14?
Yeah, it depends on which one, or if you look at the blended barrel, but they're tracking like the heavies are tracking the price of oil. Yeah. And ethane has gone up, and propane, there for a while, propane got crazy. It's way up. So it's dramatically different. Yeah. Especially if you have that rich gas. What's like the strategy when you started Impact, you have a land background, is it just like whatever works, what's ever actionable and economic? Or is there like a specific strategy where you're like, I like this geology, or I like this county, or is it more of just like an opportunistic, like how do you approach like trying to build the company and growing?
I would say it's kind of a combination. We try to, we're not going to go buy we try not to buy like a 20 MCF a day well, right? I mean, it costs us the same amount of money to operate something doing 1,000 MCF as it does 20. So, we're not a group that's going to go out there and say, hey, let's buy something doing 20 MCF a day and let's go out with our wrenches and not because we're too good to do it or what. We've done it before, but we are trying to grow maybe a bigger asset base, maybe, kind of a threshold of 100 MCF or more a day, just maybe there's some opportunity there. One of the fields we bought in 2019 was from a company that basically was going through restructuring and really gas heavy, moving a lot of water, with the ESPs, and didn't really fit us, but we felt like we were getting a good price on it. And, we were able to go in and put some additional ESPs downhole, spend the money. This company didn't have money, and so we were able to, take some wells that were doing 0, and they're doing 1,000 MCF a day. So our combination is, one, traditionally we've looked at Oklahoma because it's in our backyard, it's easier to operate. But like the stuff in Wyoming that we're looking at, it's kind of a low well count, oil heavy. We're really gas heavy. And so if we can if we're trying to say, hey, if we can get a little more balanced oil, that's good. But, I would say just, we try to, in our term, we try to stay away from junk. I mean, that's relative, but if we can get something that can support, say, an AOH, like if it can just support administrative overhead, that means that it's at least making some money. Right. And so we try to at least look at what is it going to cost us full cycle to operate a well. And if we can do it and make money, we'll buy it.
Do you think I'll go to that question next. Do you what's like the deal pipeline? Is it relationship based? Do you use like Energy Net? Do you use like all the above? Do you have in terms of that side of the strategy, like just originating actionable opportunities? Like how do you think about it? What do you guys do on that front?
Yeah. So combination, we, I'm always on the phone. My partner's like, hey, if you're not on the phone, that's a problem. So I'm always on the phone, always reaching out to all the brokers, people that I know that operate wells. Unfortunately for me and for a lot of people, the brokers have done such a good job of like saying, hey, market with us, we can get you the best rate, that you're kind of forced to go through the brokers. Mm-hmm. And so, because people they just don't really want to market something without a broker, which makes sense. They feel like, and the brokers do a good job. So for what we've tried to do is, because of the way we structure our deals, is like, we have a group of friends and family and our own capital and strategic partners. We don't have like a blank check that we can just write, for $5 or $10 million, but we can raise that type of money and pretty quickly. But that kind of hurts you in a marketed process because, there are groups out there that have 15 million or 30 million in the bank and can write that check. So what we've kind of focused on and the opportunities that we've been able to get have been opportunities that had failed sales. Maybe they didn't fit the private equity model, or they were too big for a smaller independent. And so we've been able to, buy things that way. We've noticed that once you kind of get outside of 10 million, that gets really hard for a lot of the smaller operators to put together. And kind of anything, below 50, private equity doesn't want to touch, or it gets hard to raise. We can probably do, kind of upwards of 15 million, which gives us a little bit of advantage on a $10 to $15 million deal. But I would say traditionally most of the deals we have bought they were failed sales, and we were able to come in and negotiate a PSA and close like we said, like we said we would. So
that's awesome. What's harder to do? What's the harder deal environment for picking up oil and gas assets? When is it like a 2020 when things are sentiment's all time low and price went negative? Let's not take that exact period because that was an enigma, but like, let's say later that year when things are still pretty bad, or is it a harder deal environment to get stuff done when you have $115 oil and $8 gas? Like, or is it just different?
It's different. I would almost say, this year's we've gotten a lot of deal flow and we've been able to pick up small interest here and there. And it's almost because people, hey, it's $100 oil, let's sell this and take the money and run. And so maybe right now it's maybe easier to get a deal done.
Yeah.
Versus, when oil was 40 or 50, I'd call on people, independents, they'd be like, well, I'm kind of hanging on for one more run. And when oil gets to 70, we'll sell. And then you call them when it gets to 70, they're like, I'm going to hang on. So I would say probably right now you have a lot of groups trying to kind of make exits. Yeah. Because there's been a lot of people have bought assets over the last 5 years. So if they can, they bought them at $55 or less. And so I would say right now, probably we're seeing more opportunity to buy things than we did when oil was, in the 50s.
Makes sense. It seems like that would be true. And we're seeing it with our clients, people looking for opportunities to exit. And that's always worrisome. When we first started, it was, had a couple good clients. Two of our first clients were Felix and Payrock, and they were private equity backed, and we knew the guys were ex-Chesapeake. Some of them were. And so we had relationships, and they brought us on. And I remember they both sold. And they did really well. And they sold to big companies. They sold to Devon and to Marathon. And I remember being like, we were like, man, this is just how it is. Like, we're always going to have clients that are selling, and then we have to replace these clients and build up that base. And then I remember getting a lot of new clients, and they were all the same model as those guys, a lot of private equity backed guys. And then around 16 or so, everybody was saying, hey, we're going to exit. Yeah. And we're like, oh my gosh. But then you start to think about it and you're like, well, if everybody is saying that they're going to exit, then who are these people going to sell to? And sure enough, like hardly anybody sold. We have had over the last couple of years, some guys have some pretty good exits. And I think some guys will probably sell this year and get a good deal and make hay while the sun shines. But it was just a period of a long time where guys were just kind of holding on. And I think the one thing I've heard now is that the volatility in pricing is not good, because it's like if you get a deal under PSA and gas is $5 and then you're going to close and gas is $8 or whatever, well, the seller's like, or vice versa. It's like, how does that value get adjusted? And so it's just like, I wonder if that volatility, have you seen that at all, where you're like looking at a package and then things have changed so much in such a short period of time that you're like, this is totally blows out of the water what we were thinking?
I say we don't like to look at junk, but we were looking at some wells in Northwest Oklahoma, like more or less junk, but could make some money if we basically just, we would own them mostly 100%. And so even if we charge ourselves overhead, there's one pocket out in the other, so we could make some money. And so we were looking at it, and Mickey was like, guys, when gas prices go back down to $2 or $1, these things aren't going to make money, or you're going to be getting the minimum volume fee and all that. And so we're kind of looking at it, and we had a number to it, and we were talking to the seller, and this was a privately negotiated deal, and he said, I think we can get there. Let me run it by engineering.
Yeah.
Like, things were moving pretty good, and then like within like a month later, gas went from like what, $4 or $3.50 to what it is now. So now he's like, hey guys, we're a little off on valuations. Like, well, yeah, but it's just a numbers game. So yeah, that's. Yes, we just went through that, or are still going through it with this group on, it's like, how do you pick a number?
Yeah. It can work both ways. You can get something and it can drop after you buy it, or you can buy something and then it can go up. It's kind of that weird timing thing. And then the hedging always seems like it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. Right, yeah. Like the strip is never right. Yeah. That's what I always say. I'm like, well, I don't know what gas prices are going to be, but it won't be the strip, because the strip is almost never right. How's it like working with your dad?
It's awesome. Yeah. I love it. we really are 50-50 partners. Like he's not coming in, son, you got to do this, or, know. And I think probably one thing that makes our relationship, our partnership different is, he's a petroleum engineer and I'm a lane man. So, so we stay in our lanes. And I think that's important in any partnership, whether you're father, son, or brother, sister, like, or what you have, here at Encova. It's, if you can stay in your lane, and I think one thing that, life or deals, they have their seasons, and so there may be a time where I'm hitting home runs and maybe dad's not doing as well, or he's hitting home runs, and so I think you can't keep score. That's really important. Like I was talking to, I'm a golfer, I love playing golf, and I was at a scramble with a couple of our employees who never play really. And if they're gonna play on their own, they're gonna shoot mid hundreds, maybe 90, and I play a decent amount. I'm kind of mid 70s, low 80s. But we were playing in this golf scramble, and we ended up shooting like 5 under, and it's like, well, I can't shoot 5 under on my own. But if you ask us individually, how'd you play? I'd be like, I played all right, and the other guys would be like. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, what's cool about a partnership, if you have the right partner, even though you may sometimes think you're not carrying the weight or doing certain things, like, you really are better with a good partner or a good team 100%. Than doing it on your own. So working with Dad is awesome. He outworks everybody at the office. We don't even try to keep up with him. But using, having the ability to walk in his office with a guy that's been in the industry for 40 years and has worked hard in the oil field, and then, now more on the office side, but he's done it all. He's seen it all. Having his leadership and just wisdom is really awesome. It's cool. I have a close relationship with my dad, and I think that's really neat. I mean, I think to be able to spend time together, and he's always been my mentor, like in the industry. And I think that was probably one of the luckiest things. I've had a lot of good mentors, like Mark, who's my partner. He's also a mentor. Recently this last year, like David Heikkinen's a guy I've been doing podcast stuff with. I'd consider him a mentor. It's like the other day I made like a post on social media, and I was like, having a good mentor is probably one of the more underrated aspects, variables to being successful in business. Like having mentors that actually care about you and that like will give you advice. I mean, there's just something totally invaluable, especially, and then the fact that it's your dad and you get to have that relationship, it's really cool. And then I want to also talk about your thing you said about partnerships. It's having a good partner is like the best leverage. And it's like, I found out like early on with Encova, we were trying to figure out, hey, how do we want to structure this? And we wanted to do a partnership. And I just remember feeling very lucky because it's someone to share the load with, right? Like, and I know a lot of guys maybe get caught up in like a title or like wanting to be the CEO of something. And I've like joked around with people. I was like, I never want to be the CEO of anything because that means the buck stops with you and you're responsible for everything. I would much rather have a couple of partners that are either equal or close to equal, and y'all skin in the game, and then everybody can lean on each other. And if they're good partners, it's actually leverage. Like it enhances it, right? And it's a way to spread that out. And then you're never the one that's like the buck stops with you. You have like a great support system with your partners. And so, I don't know. So I think some people get lost on that. Like they think about the traditional hierarchy structure in a company, but even employees, like I try to be like I work with these people, not like they work for you or whatever, just because you do work together. And that's kind of, I mean, obviously sometimes you kind of have to act like you're a boss, but most of the time it's just like, you're my colleague, like we work together. It seems like that's a better... that's the way we try to do it at our offices. We have team members and we're all part of a team. And I think somebody said one time to my dad or something like, my boss, and it's like, no, we're team members. Like, we work together. And and I mean, like you said, sometimes you have to be a boss or put on the boss hat, but having a good partner and somebody to bounce things off is, I wouldn't want to do it alone. I hear you. I'm kind of like fascinated too with people that do things that are entrepreneurial. And I want to talk about some of the other stuff you have going on. I just love hearing stories of how people built stuff, built companies. And I remember it started when I was early in my career, and I just was like real fascinated with seeing somebody that was successful that like had built companies and just being like wanting to like figure out how they did it and what they did and what their story was. And that's one of the coolest things about the podcast is talking to a lot of people that have built things. But is that something you had the itch for?
did you always want to do that, or did it something that like it hit you one day, or kind of just your thoughts around entrepreneurship to start?
So yeah, I love entrepreneurship. There's a good podcast out there on Spotify called How I Built This by Guy Raz, which talks about a lot of entrepreneurs that have built things. But no, I would say it's kind of been probably in my blood. You know, my dad, ever since I been born, he's basically been an independent. So, you know, going out with him and seeing how he did things, and then, you know, I think it started when probably was, you know, kind of like 13, 14. You know, we lived in the neighborhood for a while, and we could push the lawnmower up and mow Mr. Duncan's yard, or, you know, Mr. Walter's yard. And it starts to occur to you, like, man, I'm making $30 in 30 minutes. And, you know, if I go work at, you know, fast food or something, I'm going to have to spend all day to work this. So, you know, and when I did turn 16, you know, me and my other brother started the lawn company. And so we got the lawn business up big enough where it was like one of those decisions. I was like, well, why do I need to go to college? Like, I'm making good money. And of course, mom and dad were like, you know, you can go get your degree, you can always get back in the lawn business. And so I did. Of course, my brothers kept doing it and are very, very successful. But I love business. I love the excitement of it. I've owned a snow cone stand before. I would not recommend owning a snow cone stand. But, you know, the cool thing about business is it really can change people's lives in ways that nothing else can. You know, being able to employ a high school student to run your snow cone stand, or, you know, the lawn business, we had our buddies working for us, or with, you know, on the operating side, you know, we've been able to, you know, a lot of our employees that are come to work for us were looking for a job. They were in between jobs. So, you know, being able to do that through business, and of course make some money along the ways, it's so much fun. And I don't have a whole lot of hobbies other than probably golf, and I don't get to do that much anymore with having a couple kids. But business is like, I would rather be at the office and like trying to risk something or trying to make money than like, you know, not doing that. And so having that risk, I don't know, there's something about starting a business, the risk, and then seeing that success, which doesn't happen overnight. As you know, it takes years and years and years, but it is very rewarding.
100%. Someone explained it to me one time, and they said, just one word, they were like gravity. He's like, you're trying to get more gravity. And I was like, what do you mean? And it's like just this pull where you have a bigger influence in the world. And so like every business is like an idea to start. Like you guys had the idea, you were like, let's do a lawn care business. And so the first thing you're trying to do is you're trying to influence like customers to get them to have the business. And then you slowly build this gravity where you're influencing more. And then at some point you look up and there's like whole families of people that you're supporting with the business that started out as an idea. And it's really like, ultimately, how much gravity can you build? Like, can you build enough of influence in whatever space you're trying to be in to where you get more wells, which then equal more employees, or you get more whatever clients or whatever it may be. And it's just a really interesting. And then one day, I don't know if you've ever had this, but you'll like have kind of a epiphany where you look around, you see all these people in a room and you're all talking and everything's clicking on all cylinders. And you're like, this is really cool. Like it's turned into this thing where it's affecting all these different people. I mean, obviously impact in the name and the start of it. That's what I thought of when you first said it. Yeah, no, I mean, that's exactly right. I think that probably happened a few months ago. We ended up getting a pretty big conference table in an office. Well, we started with just this really small office and then started knocking holes in the wall as we expanded. And we have this big conference table, and I think one of the employees was like, man, this is really big. Like, it's like, we'll fill it, just wait. And we were all sitting around watching a leadership like podcast or something, and it's like the table was almost full. And we have more employees out in the field, and like you said, not to mention our vendors that, you know, we keep rigs going all the time, and it's really fulfilling. And you know, it took a lot of time and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and a lot of grace for sure. But it is, like you said, when we started, it was just the two of us, right? And didn't really have any money. And then I can only explain it through God's grace, because it's just like, there's no way that really should have worked, where now we have this whole team, and we actually have an IT team. I don't have to, or a contract. I don't have to do the IT work anymore, Max. Man, I'll tell you that much, dude. I hate that. We're always like, thinking about IT can get expensive, and then you look at it and you're like, but if I were to have to do this, there was at one point where I was, you know, I ran everything through like Office 365 when we started, and I had like, the website was run through GoDaddy and I was like doing the website. And then like every time we would onboard somebody, I'd have to go buy them a laptop, install Office 365. And I just remember it was just like a huge time suck, and it was hard because then people would have problems and they'd come to you and you're trying to like talk on the phone and do something. And it's just, the best thing we ever did was hire a good accountant right off or one of the early things, but one of the best things we ever did was hire a good accountant, somebody that can take care of all that. Cause I used to do invoicing and stuff too. And my gosh, and I'm not good at that stuff, but, no, it's a process and it's not always fun. That was the other thing I was going to ask is like just the challenges. I mean, to me, it's stressful. I think the hardest thing for what we do typically is that it's service-based. So it's not like you have an asset that's kind of there. Yeah. Assets have like characteristics. There's things that are liabilities. You can kind of plan for them. There's things that are unexpected. But with service, it's just such a large people element to it. And it's such a treadmill that it's probably the most stressful thing to me is just that aspect of it. But what about challenges for you and you guys?
From the challenges probably, on the operating side, you can have mechanical failures. You can have high value wells that something goes wrong with them you didn't expect. So those are challenges. And then commodity prices are always a challenge. Right. On the service side, we do have our other company, our Environmental Impact Solutions, which is a company we started really in August of 2020 of all times to start a company we did. And that kind of stemmed from, we had, as an operator, you have spills from time to time. It just happens. We don't like to have them, but it happens. And we just noticed there wasn't a whole lot of like companies out there that maybe charged what they should. We felt like they were charging way too much. And so we had a family friend that had worked for an environmental company and were able to hire him and start that. And from the service side, I know what you're talking about because while I love employees and employees are great, you still have to, being an employer, you also have to, people, we all have our issues, but when you have a service side, you have customers and employees. And so it is challenging because now you have two people that you're having, you have to work with and so from the service side, and then you're having to go out and get the work and you're always dealing with competitors, versus, an operator, our customers, I guess, would be royalty owners. Yeah. And we have really good royalty owners, but from a service side, I kind of know what you're talking about from our environmental company.
It's hard. Yeah. I mean, I think that for me, I struggle with it because I've been trying to get more into like stoicism. I don't know if you ever follow that at all. You seem like you're into self-help or like podcasts and stuff. It's good. Like Ryan Holiday's a guy I've been listening to a lot of his books. I tend to listen to stuff on Audible. It's hard for me to read because I'm usually busy, but stoicism just focuses on like, focus on what you can control.
Yep, absolutely. And
don't focus on what you can't control. And that's probably the thing that drives me the most nuts with having a service company is that, like I tell my people all the time, if a client leaves us and they go make more money doing something else, then we should be happy for them because they made more money and that's a good thing. And if we did a good job and did the best we did that we could do, then everything's good. What drives me nuts is when it's like a competitor or somebody and I feel like they're leaving for a less value proposition and I'm like, if I'm losing money and the client that I like is going to lose money with this competitor because they're misleading them or whatever, whatever the issue may be, they're promising them something that they can't deliver on. That's when I just can't sleep at night and I just stay up and like figure out like how can I, and you just realize like there's nothing you can do. All you can do is your best job. You're in the service industry. You're going to gain and lose business. And that's just part of it. But that's something I struggle with. It's like you want to control everything.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that was when we started the company. We're out there trying to get business and we talked to people that are now clients, but it was like, oh, we're happy with who we have. And it's like, well, we can offer you a much better service. We really can. Trust us. Right. Like, and then they're like, no, we're happy. We really are. And it's like, yeah. And then, you do have, sometimes you lose out on bids and you're like, well, why? And, that's, I think it wasn't too long ago, I kind of had the realization you did. It's like, we can offer a service and we can't force them to use us. But if we continue to be persistent and to show like how we can provide service, we're going to win some, we're going to lose some. And we just lost we were working with a client. It's a client of ours, and we didn't win one of the proposals. And it's like, well, why didn't we win it? Well, I mean, there's other jobs out there. And so I think some people can tend to get focused on why they lost a client or why they didn't get this job. But I mean, it's oilfield. There's a lot of clients out there. So you got to be careful of focusing too much on like one client that maybe doesn't want to use you for whatever reason, and focus on the people, the good customers that do want to use you and continue to offer, value to them.
Sure. Great advice. It's easier said than done sometimes.
Oh, absolutely.
So tell me more about, because I was going to get into the environmental side. just do a plug for it. What all do you guys do? Is it just the spills and remediation stuff? Do you plug and abandon, or do you do any, like, what all do you do?
Yeah, so it started out just kind of spills and remediation. It's since evolved, at clients' request. We do some non-hazardous waste. We have some SWD clients that, as they're getting the water in from their clients, they're putting filters on it to filter out, kind of the junk and all that. And so we'll haul off the drums, and we can do that. We do SBCC plans. Every operator by law is more or less required to have SBCC plan. So, if all of your tanks filled up with oil and water, and then it rained, it rained a 10-year flood, and you were to have a breach in containment, where's the nearest body of water? So we do that, and that's kind of a way to keep revenue going. And then of course we have steady work through our kind of till and treats. We do we're starting to get them more into tier 2 reporting and that type of stuff. But you can always, there's so much you can do in the environmental world that we've kind of made it a goal of, okay, let's grow at the request of a lot of our clients. Because we're always talking to our clients, what do you need? Where can we help you? What can we do? And so if there's a service that we see that we can help them on, we'll add it. We can do things. So we have a good team. And so, but right now we're focused mainly on the SBCC work, remediation, and then any type of reporting that a client might need. Got a good group of guys, and so far we've been growing and adding new clients, and it's been a challenging road, but we've got a really good business development guy, and been adding to our equipment base, and got a skid steer and booms and pads and all sorts of stuff. So that's what we do, and we're always looking for more clients. So
yeah, it sounds fun. Anytime building something it's fun and it's challenging, but it's cool to see that it start to come together. I was going to ask, anything outside of oil and gas that you on the entrepreneurship side?
Currently I'd say I'm just focused on the operating side and the environmental side. Don't have a whole lot extra going on right now.
Just wondered if you ever had the itch to,
thought about doing real estate at some point in time, and may still look at that. But I looked really hard at real estate in 2020, like I think every oil and gas person did. And then I got to thinking about and talking to some people. I'm like, really, real estate's not that much different than oil and gas. It's just, instead of royalty owners, you have, renters or tenants.
Yeah.
But always looking for opportunity. But right now we're still in growth mode at Impact. So most of my cash is just going right back into the company.
Sure. It makes sense. I got into real estate in 2020, like every other oil and gas guy. And I've learned a lot about what we did like and what we didn't like. Luckily, if you did anything in 2020, you've done okay because prices have gone up. But the single family home stuff is where I started, because I was like, I've owned homes. Yeah. Like I can rent these out, and like the cash on cash returns are good. You have like maintenance events or whatever, and you have to pay for that. But it's just a lot of work for like a little bit of return. Yeah. And we've focused on other stuff. We're doing like the short-term rental vacation thing.
Okay, yeah.
Broken Bow.
Yeah, we love going down there. That place is awesome.
I mean, that's one of the coolest spots in the world for me. Like it's been a great business stuff. The business side of it's been phenomenal, but then it's also just like a really special place. There's just not many places in Oklahoma that look like that, and really just there's something about the Mountain Fork River and just that whole area that just draws people in. It's just such a nice spot. Yeah, I mean, we were there probably 3-4 weeks ago, and we try to go every year, and it just continues to grow every year. And the bowling alley and the different venues that keep popping up. And was it let's see, which group, they're putting the big casino down there, and the resort. And so it's not that far of a drive from Oklahoma City, so it really is, and it's a special place. You're right. Just to pivot to down there, because you're somebody that visits, and for the people we're talking about, Broken Bow, Oklahoma, it's down in southeast Oklahoma. You've probably seen me post about it, but what do you think about the commercial? To me, it still seems like there's so much that can be done down. Just like, it's still like, for as many cabins and like as many people are going there, it's like there's not that much really. I mean, it still seems like there's a lot of room to grow, I guess is my point.
Yeah, so one of the things that like I've talked about when we go down there, I'm like, man, no offense to Okie Girls Coffee down there, but there's really not that good of a coffee shop in town. I was like, there's got to be some opportunity. But then, I don't know what you do about the employee situation.
It's bad.
And getting people to work and to fill those positions. And so I think there's some room as things grow, and maybe somebody needs to build some cool apartments down there to get some of the younger crowd down there to work during the summer especially. But I think there's still a lot of room on the commercial side because, as fun as it is to go down there, there's still not a lot of stuff to do outside of the cabins. You got your bars and restaurants to go to and you can get on the lake. But I mean, it's growing, but I still think there could be more room for shops and just different things to do.
The places to live, the living down there is crazy. Like you talk to any of the employees and nobody lives there. I mean, everybody's driving in. Like our bartender, that's at the pizza place that we go to kind of by one of our old cabins. She was like driving in over an hour from Texas. I think she was down in Paris, Texas, and she was driving up however long that drive is. But she's like, yeah, I do that every day. And I was just like, you can't work in Paris. She's like, man, not for the, she's like, it's such a good job opportunities here and the money's good and all this stuff. So they've got to figure that out. There'll be opportunities for people down there. But Oklahoma, man, I'm just bullish in general. I think Oklahoma is like, just so underrated. I think in like the pandemic, it kind of broke out a little bit. There was like people coming in from like different states. But just your thoughts on Oklahoma, and then we'll talk about OKC.
Yeah, so I saw we're just made in Oklahoma City. We just made top 20, but Oklahoma in general, I think there's still a lot of our economy is based on the oil business. I mean, we can say, oh, we have this and that, but like a lot of the other businesses that have popped up have been because of oil and gas, investors. But Oklahoma's great. It's a good place to live. I don't like the wind. We've had the last 2 months have been miserable.
The wind is awful.
But just as far as like good values and place to raise family, like my great grandparents like settled here. We still have the old homestead out in western Oklahoma.
Nice.
So
That's really cool.
This is home, and knowing that great grandparents were settled here. It's a good state, especially for the oil and gas business.
It is a good state. It's I think we're going to benefit a lot from Texas, as much as I hate to admit it. I'd like the Texas rivalry thing is more just like fun for me. I actually like Texas a lot. I love visiting. I wouldn't want to live there.
Yeah, right.
I go down there for work quite a bit, and but just like DFW and what's happening in like North Texas right now, just the bleed over of commerce into Oklahoma. And Broken Bow is a perfect example. It's like 85% of the renters are coming up from Texas, and I think Eufaula is getting a lot of that too. A lot of investors coming in. And it's just like, for example, another thing I've seen is the trend of like oil field service companies trying to get shops and stuff here and just like driving down to the Permian, because it's like you can get so much cheaper labor and, shop space and commercial real estate. Like I'm surprised at like more, you've got this big move of like tech coming in from California to Texas. It's like I'm surprised some tech company hadn't come and like bought Chesapeake's campus or something like that. Because like it's just like cost of living here is so low, and it's a good place to raise a family. But what about OKC? It's been, in my personal opinion on it, it's been a little rocky since kind of 2014, whenever that first downturn happened. It was like we had just gotten the thunder at the beginning of last decade, and things were kind of coming up. But it does seem like now with prices coming back, maybe it's turning a corner. But just your thoughts on the city?
I mean, I've lived here my whole life, so it does seem like it's continuing to grow, and I think we just got like top 20, but you're starting to see a lot more California license plates around town, and we kind of had the kind of that big revitalization of downtown. But honestly, Max, I don't get out as much anymore with 2 kids, and especially over the last couple of years. So it's still a good place to live. It seems like a lot of stuff shifted more into like North Edmond. Yeah, seems to be kind of where a lot of the development's going. But I still like Oklahoma City.
I do too. It's good. I was born in Tulsa, and I lived there till I was 14. I came here in high school and went to high school here, and then came back and I've been here ever since. So it's funny because I still like Tulsa too. I haven't lived there in forever, but I just have a place for it. My wife's from here, so it's this weird rivalry. So it was like Tulsa versus OKC. I'm like, I like both, but Tulsa's had some decent growth too. What about just switch it? Last topic, 'cause this is personal stuff and it's fun. But like OU leaving Big 12, and your thoughts around just like that whole landscape and going to the SEC, and then Lincoln Riley and this whole thing. I mean, it's just, I know you're an OU guy, so.
I mean, they go where the money is, right? Like ultimately I think it'll probably be overall. I think it'll probably be a good thing for OU getting into. I don't say more competitive conference. That is going to be a challenge, I would think. For OU to win. I mean, they're a good team, but Alabama and some of those other teams have been consistently good and just out recruit OU. Right. So I think it'll make OU step up to the plate. I guess we really haven't won a national championship in 19, 20 years. So it'll be interesting.
My Oklahoma State, because I went to OSU, my Oklahoma State conspiracy theory on why it's a bad move for OU, even though it's probably a great move from the money standpoint. My theory is that with all the players getting paid now, everybody's like TV money, TV money, TV money. And I'm like, have you guys looked at the TVs? I mean, people are unplugging their TV the fastest ever. ESPN's like a fail. I mean, from everything I've read, ESPN's really struggling. A lot of these sports networks are struggling. It's all moving kind of towards this, more pay for a streaming service or whatever. So I know that this latest round of TV money was really good, but I'm like, are TVs is this going to be a thing in the future? And then the other thing is the players all getting paid now and realizing that, they're the stars, right? In the near future, Nick Saban won't be the highest paid guy on the team. Yeah. I mean, that sounds crazy, but already the quarterback's making $1 million or something. And it's only a matter of time to where these brands are wait a second, the guy with the jillion TikTok followers, he's the star. Right. No one knows this old coach. I'm going to, so it's just I wonder if those changes will pull some money out of the traditional, it means a big deal to be in the conferences and then puts it into the players. I don't know. I still think it's a good move for OU. I was kind of salty about it, but at the same time, it's it's easier conference for OSU to probably win games. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's interesting with all the players getting paid and
who knows? I don't think anyone knows what's going to happen.
No. I think they're going to have to change the transfer policies. I mean, You've seen kids just go transfer to one team to get money and then transfer back. And
I think ultimately the players getting paid is a good thing in some ways. It's just, it was a little archaic, but bringing it back to oil and gas, that's just for fun. I just like talking about this stuff because it's fun. And I hadn't talked about it in a while. I haven't really talked about it on the podcast, but how do people find you for the environmental side? If people want to use you guys, what's the best way to find you?
We have a website, environmentalimpact.us. We're on LinkedIn. We have a presence there, and I'm on LinkedIn. And so it's, we can reach out to the website, reach out on LinkedIn. Pretty easy.
So that's for that side of it. For the upstream side of it, any deal makers? You probably already talked to all the deal makers.
Try to.
If you got a deal, then you can reach out to you. But man, thanks for coming on and doing it.
Max, appreciate it.
It's fun.
Thank you.
Yeah.